In this lesson, we will take up the communication strategies of American business job interview sessions. Needless to say, this is a very important area for anyone in the American business world. There's always a lot of pressure involved, so the best strategy is one of preparation and practice. Remember also, however, that people conducting job interviews are as interested in an amicable and interesting session as those who are interviewing. For that reason, honesty is often a disarming and effective tack. Here are some strategic concerns for job interviews in the business file for this lesson. Job interview pointers. Your appearance is as important as your speech. Dress for business, don't overdress. Your interest in the job and the company must be apparent. Your background must be suitable, but perfection here is not usually an issue. Your manner must be businesslike, but not dry, mechanical, or demanding. Humor can be very important. Now, let's translate these pointers into communication techniques. Appearance. This also concerns body language, how you look, act, move. All of these things are a form of your individual communication in the situation. It should be businesslike. Interest. Know something about the industry, the company, its competitors. Then you'll have something relevant to say. Background. Speak about it in basic terms, to the point and related to the job. Don't exaggerate. Manner. Try to focus on what questions you are asked and how best to respond to them. Don't act apart. Let's go now to a business file which lists typical job interview questions. Remember this, however, these are typical questions. Always be ready for a personal question or two. More about that later. Here's a business file with job interview questions. Notice that they focus upon two strategic areas we discussed before: interest and background. Job interview questions. Tell me how you became interested in Dollar Max stores. What exactly do you know about our store operations? Can you tell us how you became interested in financial services? How much do you know about retail banking? What areas of banking are you particularly interested in? Would you please summarize your experience in information systems? How about your last job? Could you talk a little about your duties and responsibilities, or your current job? What has been your experience in retail banking? How do you believe your education has prepared you for this particular position? Have you actually had experience on the trading floor? Those job interview questions are general purpose, run-of-the-mill questions. They change, of course, relating to the particular industry and company in which the job is offered. As you can surmise, preparation for the questions is simply a matter of straightforward logic. Learn about the industry and company, assess your training and experience in relation to them, and prepare to detail how your training and experience match the requirements of the industry, the company, and the particular job. The responses to these interview questions are largely individual. By that I mean that the responses depend upon the situation, the industry, and company, and the individual seeking the job. But we will provide some general response patterns for each of the questions. Look at this first one. Tell me how you became interested in Dollar Max stores. Well, I've always been interested in retail. Here, the emphasis is on the industry. My interest comes from my own association with Dollar Max. Here, the emphasis is on personal association. Actually, I've been interested in general merchandise outlets since childhood. This is what we call the childhood gimmick. And here, my interest was stimulated by what I read about Dollar Max in the financial press, the reference to news reports. Now let's practice responding to these job interview questions. I'll ask the question, you choose a response and say it aloud. Here we go. Tell me how you became interested in Dollar Max stores. You might have said, my interest comes from my own association with Dollar Max. Can you tell us how you became interested in financial services? Your response? Well, I've always been interested in financial services. What exactly do you know about our store operations? All right, you might have responded, well, to be honest, just what I've seen during personal visits. I'd really appreciate an overview of your business. How much do you know about retail banking? Here's a response. Frankly, I don't know much, and I was hoping you might summarize it for me. That was very good. Here then is the business file for job interview questions and answers, Q&As. This time with sample response patterns for each. You have practiced the general ones, and you can practice the more specific ones when you review this section. Job interview Q&As. Tell me how you became interested in Dollar Max stores. My interest comes from my own association with Dollar Max. What exactly do you know about our store operations? Frankly, I don't know much, and I was hoping you might summarize them for me. Can you tell us how you became interested in financial services? Actually, I've been interested in financial services since childhood. How much do you know about retail banking? Well, I know about retail accounts and credit departments, but not the overall operations scene. What areas of banking are you particularly interested in? I'm honestly interested in all of them, but I especially like retail banking, credit, etc. Would you please summarize your experience in information systems? Sure. My education was in infotech, and my first position was a programmer at Barton Data. I was promoted to a systems analyst after 2 years. How about your last job? Could you talk a little about your duties and responsibilities? Gladly. I was the supervisor for specific product telemarketing. My duties involved supervising 9 marketers. What has been your experience in retail banking? I have had 4 years' experience with First National in Des Moines. I began as a teller. After a year, I was promoted to floor supervisor. How do you believe your education has prepared you for this particular position? Well, my college degree is in finance. In addition, I have done a continuing education certificate in international banking at NYU. Have you actually had experience on the trading floor? No. Unfortunately, all my experience has been back office, but it is quite varied. Let's turn now to a brief business file which lists a few job interview questions. They are designed to measure personal characteristics. Personal interview questions. What do you like to do in your spare time? What is it about your current job which causes you to look for another one? What attributes do you look for in a boss? Would you tell us what you think your own personal employment strengths are? Any weaknesses? What attributes do you look for in your coworkers? For questions of a specifically personal nature, you will be most successful if you approach them honestly. After all, you are the person most qualified to reply. Of course, you will also want to stress those areas that are your strengths, and you might respond humorously about your weaknesses. Incidentally, everyone has weaknesses, but you might refer to them as areas you are trying to improve or develop. Preparation and common sense are your best aids in developing responses to personal interview questions. Look at this first one. What do you like to do in your spare time? And I have 3 response patterns. I don't have a lot of spare time, but, etc. I prefer to spend my free time, etc. And most of all, I use the time, etc. And I've listed some free time categories here. I've chosen family, sports, culture, self-improvement, and hobbies. You, of course, could develop your own. Let's try these responses with some categories. I don't have a lot of spare time, but I prefer to spend it with my children. I prefer to spend my free time skiing. Or most of all, I use the time to read, to attend night school, to collect stamps. Let's practice responses to these personal interview questions. Here we go. What do you like to do in your spare time? All right, you might have said, I don't have a lot of spare time, but I prefer to spend it with my children, the family category. What attributes do you look for in a boss? Well, you might have said, I look for 3 important ones: honesty, humor, direction. Would you tell us what you think your own personal employment strengths are? And your response might have been, I think my greatest strength is interpersonal relations. That was a very good job. Here now is the business file for the personal interview questions, this time with a sample response pattern for each. You have practiced some already, and you can practice the more specific ones when you review this section. Personal interview questions and answers. What do you like to do in your spare time? I don't have a lot of spare time, but I prefer to spend it with my kids, movies, sports, skiing. What is it about your current job which causes you to look for another one? I'm really just tired of it. I need some new stimulation and I need more challenges. What attributes do you look for in a boss? I look for 3 important ones: flexibility, humor, and direction. Would you tell us what you think your own personal employment strengths are? I think my greatest strength is interpersonal relations. Any weaknesses? Well, none I want to think about, but I'm trying to develop my ability to manage time more efficiently. What attributes do you look for in your coworkers? I look for personableness, flexibility, and humor.